The compact Android flagship is back. Once again, ASUS has outdone itself, improving the small formula that it created with the ZenFone 8. The ZenFone 9 is the manifestation of the concept's second iteration at this time. This phone has more advantages than I can count, and the few disadvantages brought on by its small size are minor. ASUS has managed to improve an already excellent device in practically every single area, while keeping the price at a very reasonable level. Any comparisons to the iPhone mini are entirely appropriate here, as the ZenFone 9 will be available in the US for just $699. Android fans can now purchase a small with some unique features that are missing from other flagship phones. The ZenFone 9 defies convention in a world where chargers and other niceties are rarely included in retail boxes for smartphones. Along with the required paperwork, the ZenFone 9 is packaged in a box containing a 30-watt charger, a USB-C to USB-C cable, a rear cover, and of course, the ZenFone 9. It's also important to note that ASUS has given environmental concerns consideration, but not by removing components from the retail package but rather by making it completely recyclable. It doesn't have the glossy plastic coating over the paper and feels harsh to the touch, but that is a tiny price to pay to protect the environment. If we compare the ASUS ZenFone 9 to its predecessor, one of the biggest differences is its design. ASUS chose an aluminum flat frame and entirely revamped the camera bump, which now consists of two large circular bumps, one of which sticks out further than the other. The back has also undergone a redesign with a new polymer substance that feels papery and spongy and repels fingerprints better than anything else. The ZenFone 9 has character and can't be mistaken for anything else on the market, which is actually an impressive feat in and of itself. It's an acquired taste, and to some people the phone might not look as pretty as some other glass sandwich contraptions, but that's just how some people feel about it. The front is flat, and the 5.9-inch display is safely buried beneath a sheet of Corning Gorilla Victus. The selfie camera is a hole-punch design, located in the upper left corner and surrounded by a silver ring. The left side of the frame is completely empty, with the 3.5mm audio jack on top, a USB-C port on the bottom, near to the speaker grill, mic, and SIM tray, and the smart power button that works also as fingerprint sensor on the right, under the volume rocker. Midnight black, moonlight white, starry blue, and sunset red are the four color options. I had the opportunity to hold the black and white models, and there's no doubt that the blue and red options are far more exciting, especially if you intend to use the phone without the provided back cover, which you absolutely can. The back is very resilient to accidental drops, and it won't shatter or chip. I was quite delighted with the ZenFone 8's display, and things are looking much better on the new model. The panel itself is the same, but it has been adjusted to produce even more nits and has been perfectly calibrated. This 5.9-inch screen's Full HD Plus resolution, with 2400 by 1080 pixel, translates to 445 ppi and an extremely sharp and detailed image. There are 5 color presets to choose from: optimal, natural, cinematic, standard, and customized, with standard being the most color accurate. Of course, you may manually modify the color temperature, but in the aforementioned standard setting, it's virtually perfect at 6500K. The ZenFone 9, like its predecessor, has a refresh rate of up to 120 Hz, as well as 60 Hz, 90 Hz, and an auto mode. There's also an always-on mode, smart display, which stretches the screen on time when you look at it, lift to check, and other features. Even while our measurements indicated similar findings, the outside brightness is substantially better than the previous generation. We can speak about the technology, DC dimming, 1 millisecond response time, and 240 Hz touch sample rate all day, but the truth is that the ZenFone 9 has an excellent display. It competes with all of the main flagship phones. Instead of an in-display fingerprint reader, the ZenFone 9 depends on a capacitive side-mounted scanner that also functions as a smart button with a couple of tricks up its sleeve. I've always preferred this type of scanner over under-display alternatives, and I'm pleased to report that the fingerprint sensor in the ASUS ZenFone 9 works flawlessly. With this smart key, you can do a few innovative motions and button presses. For example, swiping down on the button draws the notification shade, boosting the device's one-handed working capabilities. You can also double tap to start Google Assistant or another app. Face recognition is very simple to set up, and when combined with the lift to wake feature, you're in for a very smooth and fast user experience. Lifting the phone automatically unlocks it, takes you to the home screen, and you can use shortcuts to dial your best friends with just one single tap. One disadvantage of such a compact gadget is that there isn't enough physical space for 3 camera sensors, therefore compromises to be made. The ZenFone 9 maintains the same photographic concept as its predecessor, with one main camera and one ultra-wide camera. The main sensor has been upgraded to a 1 to 1.56-inch Sony IMX766, which is housed beneath an f1.9 aperture lens with an 84.6 degrees field of view. It has a 50-megapixel sensor and uses quad-Bayer technology to produce 16-megapixel images. The use of lossless 2x cropping compensates for the lack of a dedicated zoom lens. The 6-axis hybrid gimbal stabilizer and 8K at 24 frames per second video capturing capabilities with optical image stabilization are the key technological innovations here. The technology not only works great for video, but it can also aid with long-exposure still photographs. The secondary camera has the same 1 to 2.55-inch Sony IMX363 sensor as the ZenFone 8, with an f2.2 aperture and a field of view of 113 degrees. If macro photography is your thing, it can take images as close as 4 centimeters. Overall, I was happy with the findings from both Sony sensors inside the ZenFone 9. It's not a great improvement over the previous model, but you can shoot some very decent photographs with it, especially in low-light situations. The color shift between the two sensors is modest, and photographs from the primary and ultra-wide cameras appear color-coordinated. There is a specific night mode, which works by sewing together a few frames and performing algorithmic wizardry. If you have a steady hand, you can benefit from it, but your results will vary based on the scene, the amount of light, and a variety of other circumstances. Night photographs are also rather nice, with a high level of clarity and true colors. Another Sony sensor, the 1 to 2.93-inch IMX663, is responsible for the selfie camera. If this sounds familiar, it's because the ZenFone 9's selfie camera sensor is the same as its predecessor's main camera sensor. It has dual PD autofocus, picture stabilization, zoom, and 12-megapixel quad-Bayer resolution with 122 micrometer pixels. All extremely remarkable on paper, and also quite nice in practice. There's also a specific portrait mode, and the level of background blur may be adjusted. Moving on to the video clips, this is where the true magic happens. ASUS is particularly proud of its 6-axis gimbal system, which works in tandem with software image stabilization to generate some of the smoothest smartphone films I've seen. The best results are obtained in 1080p, where cropping is used to improve gimbal correction by up to 3 degrees. The gimbal is an active component that compensates for any undesired movement while recording or shooting by using data from the gyroscope and accelerometer sensors. With this phone, you can shoot in 8K at 24 frames per second, and the gimbal technology works its magic even at this quality. That being said, you can capture beautiful 4K at 60 frames per second films, stabilized by the gimbal system, with a high degree of resolution, appropriate exposure, and decent color accuracy without filling up your storage with 8K files. The ZenFone 9 is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. The same processor is used in the ASUS ROG Phone 6 Pro, and we all know how speedy this smartphone is. Things are a touch more subdued with the ZenFone 9, owing to its smaller chassis, but the scores this little item manages to produce are nothing short of astounding. The phone can get a little warm under high load, which is an unavoidable outcome of its size and strong chipset, but it's not unbearable. Speaking of the ROG Phone 6 Pro, the Game Genie software is also featured on the ZenFone 9, allowing you access over a variety of essential settings while gaming. Granted, gaming on a 5.9-inch device can be challenging, but the phone is fast enough to handle the work if you opt to play PUBG or explore the beautiful world of Genshin Impact. ASUS also allows users to tone down or totally disable UI animations, a function that is generally hidden under the developer menu, making the phone even snappier. While the phone has up to 12 GB of RAM and 256 GB of internal storage, the former is more than enough for any practical activity imaginable, while the latter may be insufficient if you capture a lot of 8K films. The lack of microSD card slot is a pain in this scenario. The ZenFone 9 comes pre-installed with Android 12 and ASUS ZenUI on top. Most of the time, you can't tell it's there, and it feels like you're running stock Android. The ZenUI implementation is very sophisticated, and most of the capabilities are baked in either via Google Tools or in an unobtrusive manner. There is no bloatware, which I hope is a thing of the past. One of the most handy features is associated with the Smart Key. You may program it to launch any app with a double press, or you can use the voice service. Voice typing and transcription both work really well. If you're driving and need to respond to a text, simply double-tap the Smart Key, dictate your response, it will appear inside the chat app you're using, and press Submit. No more texting and driving. You may also enable the swipe to check notifications feature, which can help draw the shade without requiring hand acrobatics. However, the device is small enough as is that this feature is unnecessary and can result in phantom activations when you grab the phone. Nonetheless, it is preferable to have it and not need it than vice versa. There's a great and extensive tips section to show you all the wonderful things you can do with your new ZenFone 9, so you don't miss out on any cool features by accident. The ZenFone 9 includes a 4300 mAh battery, which is excellent on several levels. First, the phone retained its predecessor's physical dimensions, while increasing the battery capacity by 300 mAh. I'm not sure how ASUS did it, but the results speak for themselves. The battery life on the ZenFone 8 was good, but the ZenFone 9 takes it to the next level. For such a small phone, 4300 mAh seems enormous. ASUS claims the ZenFone 9 can last for 1.9 days in its own battery test technique, and I'm delighted to inform that this isn't just PR speak. To put the phone through its paces, we used automated online surfing and scrolling over a Wi-Fi network at 200 nits of preset screen brightness, continuous YouTube viewing, and 3D demanding gaming. Aside from benchmark scores, the battery life appears to be pretty solid. I'm very sure you'll get 2 full days with moderate use, and even if you stomp on the pedal, the phone will get you through a full day without issue. The ZenFone 9 ships with a 30-watt charging brick, which is also the highest power at which you can pump juice into the battery. That may appear to be a bit slow when compared to charging champions with 100-watt and 120-watt chargers, but the main issue here is the single battery inside. This implies that you cannot charge 2 cells at the same time, effectively shortening charging periods. Nonetheless, you can reach from 0 to 100% in just over an hour, which isn't terrible. With a battery life of up to 2 days, you won't be tethered to the charging cable all that much. Another interesting and surprising area where the ZenFone 9 excels is audio quality. Yes, there is a 3.5mm audio connector, and you can use audiophile headphones to go through the special Qualcomm Acoustic DAC with high-res compatibility, WCD9380 codec, but the sound coming out of the 2 super linear stereo speakers is rather excellent. Again, the sound has volume for such a little instrument, and the bass frequencies are artificially increased by adding overtones to overcome the physical limits of the speakers. There's also better crosstalk cancellation and frequency response correction, and don't worry if all of these jargon are foreign to you. It's safe to say that the phone sounds good, if not spectacular. Dirac co-created and calibrated the Audio Wizard, which has a 10-band EQ and 4 distinct sound scenarios. The haptics are also quite impressive, with the vibration having a wonderful zing to it. The tiny flagship phone segment is now very lonesome, which benefits the ZenFone 9. The apparent competitor is the iPhone 13 mini, which is an iOS gadget. When it comes to pure Android, ASUS has an advantage because one of its biggest competitors is also called ZenFone. The previous generation can be a steal, it's less expensive and a touch less powerful, cut here and there but still a highly powerful device. If you want to go back further in time, you can get a Pixel 5, which is comparable in size but nowhere near as powerful. Based on the reception of the previous generation, the ZenFone 9 has a very bright future indeed. It also gives small phone aficionados all around the world optimism. It's time for the ultimate decision. There's no denying that the ZenFone 9 is a fantastic phone. It is dependent on your specific needs whether or not it will be beneficial to you. The ZenFone 9 could be your ideal phone if you appreciate compact phones that carry a punch. If enormous screens and various camera systems are your thing, the ZenFone 9 is unlikely to excite you as much as other, larger flagships. To summarize, this phone offers an impressive package, including the fastest processor available, a great screen, amazing battery life, surprisingly good speakers supported by a 3.5mm audio jack, a fast and accurate fingerprint scanner, UI tricks to make your experience even smoother, and a reasonable price tag. What do you think of ZenFone 9? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.